What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and continue learning about is life better in Canada or the United States? Part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, feel free to go check that out or stay right here where you are. That's perfectly fine. But in part 1, we started learning about the experiences of this man right here, Igor from Ukraine, who basically immigrated and had to choose whether he was going to live his life in the United States or in Canada, and he chose Canada. And he also made this video explaining some of his thought process and some of the comparisons of the pros and cons he observed living in the United States versus living in Canada. And it has been eye-opening, to say the least. It's been very, very, very interesting. Some of the things he has talked about in part 1 so far has been work life, how much more time off and personal days Canadians get compared to Americans. As a matter of fact, the Canadian government ensures that the Canadian people get personal days and sick days and vacation, certain amount of vacation days off. Whereas in America, it's just whatever goes. You know, the businesses are really in control of how much time off we get, and they're a business, so they're pretty much not very much incentivized to give us too many nice things, as a way of saying that. And also, he was talking about maternity leave, which really shocked me. Apparently, in Canada, people who are going to give birth get like up to a year or more of maternity leave. Women who have given birth can stay home with their child for like a year or more, which I think to Canadians sounds normal. But believe me, to Americans, that is like shocking. That is shocking. Like, no American business would ever give that to an employee here, which is honestly kind of sad. I think Americans are just real used to that. We get about 3 months off, if you're lucky, to take care of your baby. And, you know, taking care of a 3-month-old or 4-month-old or 5-month-old is pretty much a full-time job. So it's really kind of sad how Americans have to make that whole thing work. So a lot of these things he's talked about have been eye-opening, I gotta tell you. He was also talking about, what else? Healthcare, don't even, oh man, don't even get me started. That might be the number one determining factor for a lot of people, and I get it, for why a lot of people would choose to live in Canada over the United States just for the healthcare system alone, and how horrible and tragic and imbalanced the healthcare system is in America. I totally agree with that Canada is doing it much, much better. And what else did he talk about in part 1? Climate! Finally, 1 point in favor of the United States. He said, hey, in Canada, your employers like have to respect you and give you time off. You can stay home with your child. You can survive and get good health care and not go bankrupt. But, you might be a little cold. There's a drawback to everything in life, so I guess you gotta make that decision for yourself. So far, it's really making a lot of sense why Igor is currently in Canada, and I'd like to hear more about some of his thoughts and experiences, some more comparisons between how life is in Canada versus the United States. So, let's take a look.
In US, not only you make more money, you also spend less. Real estate is cheaper, products are cheaper, groceries are cheaper.
Hey!
So just kind of, the gas is cheaper. That's what my friends are saying.
Stuff is cheaper. Haha. If you break your leg, you might die of like sepsis or infection if you can't afford the healthcare. But your Little Debbie snack cakes or Cheetos are much cheaper here. But I'm being a little sarcastic because it just seems like the stuff that's actually important, like to living a long, happy life, seems to be in favor of Canada for the most part. But, stuff generally being cheaper to buy is obviously a really good thing. So I actually didn't really know much about this, that stuff in Canada is more expensive. I wonder why that is.
who are living there, because I spent time with my friends on the phone who are living in the US, and they're saying even though Canadian dollar is like it's cheaper than United States, so it has to be slightly more expensive. But even that, it's still more expensive here than there. There's
Really?
stuff that you spend for groceries, for food, and for housing. Like Americans who come to Canada, they're getting surprised by what you have to pay for the house versus what you.
That's funny because I know this video. I know he made this video a few years ago, like before the current 2023 pretty much housing crisis that's happening in America and a lot of places all over the world, including Canada. In a recent video, I was actually looking at housing prices in Canada, and it's absurd. It is worse than the United States. Like the average cost of a house in Canada was like 700,000 Canadian dollars. I'm not sure who on earth can afford that, but it's also pretty bad in America. But he's making some very interesting points, like the Canadian dollar is worth a little less than an American dollar. And on top of that, stuff in America is cheaper. Are we just like manufacturing more stuff? Like, do we have more factories? Are we like bulk manufacturing stuff on a larger scale and keeping our prices down that way? Are a lot of things made in the United States and that's cheaper and with shipping? And is that the explanation?
You get in return. I don't know why it is, maybe some kind of financial bubble, but it's unreasonably high prices in Canada. Right, guys, so let's talk a little bit about education. Education in Canada is cheaper than in US. That's why when I was coming here as an international student, I chose Canada over US.
Oh, interesting. So I didn't know he was going to be going to school. He's a student. That was one of the things he was thinking about when deciding where to live. So the education in Canada, I know a little about. I'm not at all shocked to hear that it's cheaper in Canada. I wish he would go into some specifics on pricing, but honestly, I think you'd be hard pressed to find anywhere else in the world that's more expensive than the United States. I mean, there's a whole generation of students, including myself, who have it's a large range. But a lot of millennials, a lot of people around that age who are just in a lot of student loan debt still from taking out student loans, and just the pricing of how expensive the university is and higher education in the United States. You can try to help supplement that and pay for that by working while getting your education. I definitely encourage that for Americans, but there's basically no way around taking out a loan if you don't have like a scholarship or something like that. So this is a huge issue for a lot of people in the United States, and it just is like kind of nice to hear that in Canada this is just a major thing. There's not such a barrier for people getting a great education in Canada, which is only making the Canadian population more educated, more capable. Like, it only helps the country. So I see this as a huge plus, a huge point in favor of Canada and Canadian life in many different ways.
The reasons. And the final reason is, of course, immigration. Now, Canada and United States are both countries of immigrants, but I know people in US who have been trying to get their green card for over 10 years.
Oh, we're not talking about education anymore. We're talking about immigration. Okay, I'm actually glad he's talking about this as well. I'm really happy with the topics he's bringing up. Super important. Education, immigration. It's so bizarre in America, immigration. Like, I don't know why America seems to be not very in favor of immigration, especially like, I believe in Canada, if you are going to Canada to get an education, if you're bringing skills, if you're bringing like a skill set that you're going to be having a job in Canada, you're going to be contributing when you go to Canada, basically. Canada welcomes you with open arms, which makes a whole lot of sense to me. A ton of sense. Why wouldn't you want people from around the globe coming and enriching your culture and adding to it? Why? That's only a good thing. And the fact that America doesn't seem to have many programs facilitating that or incentivizing that for people who want to immigrate to America from around the world is a travesty, honestly.
And in Canada, people who have been trying for over 4 years, I think it's like 4 years, they don't let you stay more than that here in Canada unless you want to immigrate, so you got to choose. I think immigration in Canada is more fair and easier, and less people are trying to get through, so I think it's actually, it's better. I think it's the system for immigration, in my personal opinion, is better in Canada than it is in US, and it's more.
This is like he is literally an immigrant. Like he immigrated. So I take what he's saying pretty seriously as firsthand knowledge.
More fair, more transparent, and simple. So which country is better?
Yeah. Like in America, immigration's so weird as well. Like we're trying so hard to not let a lot of people in that you can like wait up to 10 years for your visa from some countries. Like I think in some countries around the world, it doesn't matter what you're coming for or who you are. Like, it's a lottery system. It's completely random, like a literal lottery. You're waiting around in your country, waiting for like a lottery to be drawn and see if your name is drawn, to see if you're chosen for that year to get to come. Like, there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it, really.
For you guys, well, I say if you want to live in a better climate, in a place where groceries are cheaper, gas is cheaper, you make more money for working, and the housing.
I was laughing because it's like he's doing his wrap up now, the conclusion, and he's like, hey, if you want to live somewhere that's a little bit warmer more of the time, and you can get some of your cereal a bit cheaper, U.S. great. It's like then it's like living in a place where stuff is a bit more affordable, and that maybe you can have more opportunities for a little higher paying jobs and stuff. That's not something to laugh about. That's actually, I consider that like a good opportunity. So
is more affordable, then probably United States is a better place for you. Also, it has some harsh immigration, and you know, people carry guns and they shoot each other literally every single day. You get something on news, someone shot someone. Then United States.
Yeah, I've heard this one before. Like, I don't need to get into this one too much, but a lot of people outside the United States seem genuinely afraid of the gun laws in America, and that if you come live here, you're in danger of getting shot and murdered, and your children could be in danger. There's school shootings. And America's a big place, and that stuff does happen every day around America, but it really does depend on where you live. I think, like, honestly, from my point of view, living in several states around the United States my whole life, in several different schools, I've personally never felt anywhere close to in danger of a firearm or weapon, and I know that's a privileged situation that I've gotten to live. But I think my point is that people who don't live in the United States maybe have almost an too much of a skewed opinion that you're in danger here of firearms, I guess, and I just, like, I don't agree with our gun laws. I think it's much, much, much too easy to get a gun in the United States, and you should have to take an exam, and every year you should have to prove that you are competent and know safety, and that you are worthy of the huge responsibility that comes with owning a gun. I definitely believe all that, but as for his little spiel here of, well, you might not want to move to America because you're going to get shot and killed, that, I think, is just kind of a gross over-exaggeration that's not entirely accurate, I suppose. And again, it depends on where you live, so take that for what you will.
States is a good country. It's not a bad country. It's a country of opportunities, and yeah, it's an American dream, guys. It's harsh, it's tough, but if you can stand your ground, it's probably the country for you. Now, if you are more of a person, socialistic, let's say, you want to get healthcare benefits for free, you want to be, government to take care of you, you want legally written in by law, that you can take maternity leave, that you can take 2 weeks of vacation, which you don't get in the US. If you want to spend more time with your family, but at the same time spend more money for the housing, pay more taxes, earn a little bit less, and you get all this support, but you're getting less out of it. You're more secure in Canada because immigration is simpler, it's more transparent than the United States. So
interesting. I like how I think he's trying his best to be sort of unbiased here. Like, he's laying out pros and cons for both countries, which I appreciate. Because I think overall, objectively, for most of this video, it's been pretty much saying most of this stuff skews in favor of Canada. And I having watched this myself, I would agree with that, honestly.
There's so many benefits versus US to Canada. But US, after all, has more money. So you decide what is best for you. If you live in the United States, make sure you do comment, guys. And don't hate me for saying legalized slavery, because that's what lots of Americans say right now. It's true. That's what...
Yeah. In part one, he was literally comparing, like, our work situation in America to slavery, which I get what he's saying, but it's like, that's a bit disrespectful to actual slaves, which I know even now in 2023, there is slavery around the world in some places, and it's like, that's disrespectful because those people are like suffering and starving and not being paid. They are literal slaves, so that's a bit different than getting to live in America with a job that's kind of crappy.
People believe, and if you watch other people's channels, that's exactly what lots of people say. Alright guys, smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, please do subscribe.
There you have it. That was very good. Very, very good. Again, this video was by Igor. I'm not going to say his last name correctly, but it might be Ryltsev. And I got to give his video a like. That was fantastic. I really, really appreciate him being transparent like this and giving his honest opinions and insights into his observations on life in the United States versus life in Canada. I think this is a fascinating topic. I would tend to agree with him, sorta, in his conclusion, where it's like, I think the countries are just good for, on an individual level, what kind of things you're looking for in life. Sadly, I guess I would say America seems to be maybe better if you are filthy rich. Like, you get access, like... that all the businesses have a lot more freedom and there's a lot more money flowing around, and maybe I don't know what the corruption is like in Canada versus America. I'm not going to get into that, but it seems like if you're in the top 1% in America, life is very good. You don't have to worry about healthcare. You don't have to worry about education. When you don't have to worry about money, suddenly America, all the problems seem to go away, but maybe that's just true. No matter where you are in the world, if you have a ton of money, all your problems go away. At least these types of problems, you could say. But yeah, it's interesting. I enjoyed this, actually, quite a bit, and I don't know. If you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like, or leave a comment with your opinion, perhaps, on life in Canada versus life in America, the pros and cons. It's a very, very interesting topic. Very interesting, actually. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and Canadian culture and stuff about Canada I have never learned before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.